Hello and welcome to FlightSim Alaska. This is Dave. Today we are sitting on the Quartz Creek runway just near Cooper Landing, just off the Kenai Lake on the Kenai Peninsula in south central Alaska. Now in the last video I said we would be taking off, heading north, and then going around towards Moose Pass, but then I realized we were missing some pretty interesting stuff. So I think today we're going to head north towards Sunrise and Hope. So that should be a fairly interesting flight. We're in the Cub today, so it's a little tough to see over the nose of this darn thing, but it's such an authentic aircraft for Alaska that I felt it was kind of obligatory to take this one out today. Here I am struggling with controls a little bit, not as comfortable with this aircraft as I am with the A5 at this point, since I've so much more practice with it. I'm going to go ahead and just see where we're at with climb and all that jazz. So we're sort of following the Sterling Highway right now. Somewhere down there is Dave Creek. I wish I could point that out, but too busy flying to figure that out at the moment. So as I said, we're heading sort of northwest-ish. Well, that sure looks good. There's a Sterling Highway there right behind us, and Kenai Lake. And we're basically going to follow the Sterling Highway until it more or less connects with the Seward Highway, and then we're going to head north until those connect, or I guess the Seward Highway connects with the Hope Junction, and I guess that's called the Hope Highway. I've never been out to Hope in real life, driven past the cutoff enough times that I feel like I probably ought to have been there at least once, but you know, you live in a place sometimes the most obvious places to visit, you just don't necessarily make priority for it. So right now we're heading towards this junction. It's off to the right here in this pass, and up ahead is where the Seward Highway comes through. Pardon me while I fidget with my instruments here. I'm kind of get a couple thousand feet below us here. This pass kind of, it's a little high towards the end. I don't want to be dropping as we do that. So kind of off to our right, you can see a mess of, I don't know, rivers and roads and things like this. And this is where, one, there's a bunch of creeks and stuff that flow in here too. This is where the Sterling Highway does in fact meet the Seward Highway. It's on the other side of this here. Now this weird lake that's raised up, that is flat, and it's at the same level as the junction of the two highways, and it's called Turn Lake. Really pretty. You see you know, waterfowl in there, and it's really low and sort of swampy, but open water at the same time. Very shallow lake, I think. I feel like in the fall time, when the trumpeter swans are coming through, you'll see them, you know, the mated pairs kind of hanging out as summer turns to fall and fall turns to winter. But this is super remarkable. I love it. This is so, you know, in spite of the fact that the textures are somewhat underwhelming, and we've got these weird artifacts here, you know, it really does look like this. If you just sort of defocus for a second and not think about how these textures are very subdued, and you're driving through here, this is kind of what it looks like, honestly. Again, mountains are more rugged and so on. You know, these weird textures here obviously don't look like that in real life, but with this here, this is true enough. You know, the colors and the bits of foliage here, I don't know, I really like it, and I'm having a good time flying through here. It's just true enough to life that I'm just getting a kick out of it. If I could fly better, I'd be having a better kick out of it. So just on our right hand side here, we're coming over Jerome Lake, and this is significantly lower than the highway. It's actually kind of down in a canyon, and again, I think I've said this in the previous videos, this lake is about as high above the highway as it should be below the highway in real life, or as it is below the highway in real life. But again, this is very pretty, and there's a turnout here. You can actually stop and take pictures and all kinds of stuff, and you can see the Seward Highway stretching off towards Trail Lake and Moose Pass over there, and we're gonna come back through there in a later video. The Turn Lake, you know, in spite of the fact that it's goofy, all these little islands, it kind of represents that sort of low, marshy vibe you get from Turn Lake. I'm trying to keep things under control here, not crash. So we're kind of over the Seward Highway at the moment, and this is fairly true to life. I want to say through here you get a lot of tall cottonwoods and that kind of stuff right up against the highway, but then it sort of becomes more shrubby willows and alders and devil's clubs and that kind of stuff as you move up the mountainside. So again, we're in the Savage Cub, the Zlin Savage Cub. It's really an authentic aircraft flying around in Alaska. When you're looking up in the sky, more often than not, you're gonna see a Cub up there flying over you. It's just they're just ubiquitous aircraft up here, and it's the first time I've gotten a chance to get into one in this series, which is kind of silly, I feel like, because they are so ubiquitous throughout the area. That Icon that I've been flying is that's pretty specialty aircraft anyways. And over here to our right, that looks like a lake, but I am like 95.5% sure that's actually a gravel pit. And I haven't been down to Seward in years, so I'm sort of struggling to remember exactly where that gravel pit is at, but I'm pretty sure that's just a gravel pit. It's not full of water, it's not a lake, but it sure looks like one. So cool. I think we're going to put a little bit more throttle in here so we don't die. I'm getting a lot of chop through here too. Now I'm really happy about, now that we're coming through this pass here, the textures have gotten so much better and so much more true to life. It just makes me really happy. You know, in the fall time or the springtime, it looks enough like this that I just feel like I'm flying through the pass. I mean, really, it's that good. I'm digging it. I really am. Let me see if I can get a better look at this. Maybe just let that slide by for a minute. Ignore the terrible textures over there. Let's just pretend that's not there. Maybe think about this mountain right here and how good that looks. Now, what you don't see through here, what's maybe not as apparent, is that this mountain in particular, and certainly the other one over here, and I guess that one too, there's slides that come down in the wintertime, you know, and they tend to tear out the foliage, and so you get these barren bits of land through here, and this doesn't really show that very well. But all through here, it's slide territory, and you know, there's signs down on the highway saying don't stop, you know, slide area. I kind of want to get over to one side or the other so you can get a better view of this lake. So this is Trail Lake, and I'm sorry, this is not Trail Lake, this is Summit Lake here. You see people come up here and fishing. I'm not sure what they really get up here. I'm not super familiar with it, honestly, but you do see boats and things out here, and there's gate over here somewhere. So where in there you have slides coming down the mountain. They actually cut them off cut off the traffic so that you can so that they can clear the roads. And this highway is just right up against the lake there. So again, we're headed right over Summit Lake, moving through the pass along the Seward Highway. And this is super gorgeous, honestly. I'm just loving it. Way more traffic than normal, I feel like. Maybe you kind of see this on a 4th of July weekend or something. Oh, and this is another feature I absolutely love walking through there, flying through this Seward Highway, is that there's all these little pullouts, and that's true. You do see these. They're scenic pullouts. Oh, man. Hang on, I got a train of thought. This is absolutely stunning. That is legitimately what it looks like right here. Look at that. That little creek there, and oh man, that is 100% what it looks like. Anyway, back to these little pullouts. But you see those all over the place, and they're not just for pulling off and taking pictures and that kind of thing. It's also for slow vehicles. There's a rule in the state that literally nobody ever follows, but everybody knows about it and everybody bitches about it. In that if you delay 5 cars because you're moving too slowly, you're supposed to pull over and allow all those vehicles to move past. Just because we have so many 2-lane highways throughout the state that it keeps things moving. And I think a lot of people imagine that this should apply to motorhomes because, you know, these guys are coming through and enjoying the scenery and not moving super quick. But really, I think it applies to heavy kinds of vehicles that are moving real slowly. Now here we are. There's a lodge or something over here. This is legitimately a lodge. This really exists in real life, and I'm pleased to see it rendered in. There's a campground over here. I feel like I've only ever stopped there once because we had to take a potty break with a very small child. And there's a creek that runs somewhere just over here that's really pretty. I don't think we're going to see it in this sim, but it's just sort of like one of these rushing mountain creeks. I think it must be this here, coming down the mountain. No, and you're never going to see a big box truck like that move. No, that's not going to happen. They're going to a campground. But whatever, it is what it is. Shouldn't complain. Let's try to get closer to the mountain without crashing a little bit. Just keep wanting to look at this, the Seward Highway as we head north towards Cook Inlet. Yeah, there we go. That looks great. And there are campgrounds and cabins all through here, some in-holdings. Now, all through these mountains, and I don't really know the scope of it, and I haven't looked it up, and I probably should have done before I did this video, but there's definitely mining claims up in here, and they're not big mining claims, but they're, you know, mining claims that are old, that have probably been handed down from family to family or whatever. And so you get these strange little roads that kind of go off, and they look like trails more than anything, all along this highway here. Now, this other sort of trail you can see mirroring the highway here, that's actually power lines. And that's legit. I'm glad to see that's there because that's really realistic. Now here we are at Lower Summit Lake, and there's a cool feature here that I absolutely love. First of all, if it weren't for the stupid raising of the lake, this looks so legitimate. All this stuff over here, I love it. It looks awesome. This is how it looks, except for the raised stuff. There's a bridge over here, and then a little cabin, and that's true. There's a bridge here, and some cabins. This looks super great. Now, this is down, and this creek is actually higher than this. But this is so close, I can't complain. And just if that were down further, this would look exactly like it does in real life. And maybe that's why I'm disappointed, is because it is so darn close to reality that it's just kind of messing with me. Now, this here, I think this is Canyon Creek. I don't want to crash into a mountain, but I do want to get a better look at that. And you can kind of see all the rapids and the rocks and stuff like that. And again, that's fairly true to life. Now, that Canyon Creek is really low compared to the highway, so you don't get to see it very well, but you can kind of see it way down there. Yeah, let's just tip here. You can kind of see it there. Oh, there's a bridge there. I've never seen that before. That's interesting. Huh. Cool. Tip to the right here. So now here's the other place I think might be that gravel pit I was talking about. So remember I had said earlier I'm 99% sure it's a gravel pit. Well, this is the 1% sure I'm not. I think this might be the gravel pit I was thinking about. And that up there may have been another pullout in sort of a shallow lake. I don't think there was two of these jobs as we follow the Seward Highway. Boy, this sure looks good though. So this is a pretty steep hill actually when you're driving up it. I want to say that through here it's actually 3 lanes, 2 up and 1 down, and the 2 up is one's a passing lane. And I feel like you see that kind of stuff in places like Pennsylvania and other mountainous states where you don't really need a 4-lane highway, but you do need a 2-lane highway, and when you're going up a hill, you got to have that 3rd lane so you have a safe passing lane. So at this point, Cook Inlet's starting to come into view. I want to descend just a little bit. I don't want to be too high up here as we do this. I mean, probably realistically we do, but if we're talking about this stuff, I don't want to come down. Oh, and this makes it a little easier to talk about. So let me see if I get my nose down just a bit more. Come on. I want to see the kind of right ahead of us, just to the right of that little hill is that's where the highway splits, and it goes to the right through that pass. That's Turnagain Pass is what it turns into, and that's the Seward Highway, and that takes you north towards Anchorage. We're heading straight off the Hope Cutoff, and that's going to take us to Sunrise, and then we're gonna turn left. That is to say, go west and head towards Hope and land in Hope. And Hope is again a place I've never been to, and I did fly through here one time and prep for this video, so I kind of figured out where it was at. I actually had a sort of a silly notion that the Hope Cutoff actually took you straight to Hope, and then you had to take another road to go to Sunrise, but you go through Sunrise to get to Hope, and you follow Hope along the coast there, and I had no idea. I feel like I should have known, but you know, Hope is again one of those places that's really close to home, and you know, it just hasn't been a priority. So let's see here. Where are we at now? What kind of features have we got that I can talk about? Oops. So you can't tell, but I'm sort of looking at a map, sort of equivalent of a gazetteer, to try and make sure I've got these places right. So this is Canyon Creek we're above right now. I'm gonna just tip my nose down a little bit, so you can see it down there up to the left here, and it just gets into this big canyon. That's legit Canyon Creek, and we're heading towards 6 Mile Creek, and Canyon Creek flows into 6 Mile Creek, and 6 Mile Creek is a really popular whitewater rafting expedition, and there's several tour companies, well, certainly more than one, that actually do 6 Mile Creek for whitewater rafting in this area. Again, being road connected, it's super easy to access, so there's a lot of companies that can serve, you know, tourists and visitors to come and do that. And I suspect fair share of local folks. This road here kind of bounces up and down. It doesn't really look like that. I mean, it's fairly steep coming through here, but it's not super. What the heck am I looking at over here? Weird artifacts there. Like there's people standing on the highway. So coming through here, a lot of this foliage in here, it's hard to tell. I'm liking the fact that it's dark. This is Sitka spruce and hemlock up and through here. That's most of what its foliage is. And then as you move up, it's more sort of stubby cottonwoods, willows, alders, and the more typical sort of foliage you see in here, like big stands of devil's club and bushki and probably dwarf birch and, you know, whatever else, blueberries, all kinds of stuff. Now off to our right here, I missed this the first time I flew through here. There's the highway comes off to the right here. Boy, this sure looks good, doesn't it? Again, this is sort of spruce trees through here, largely along here. This is the Chugach. I think this is part of the Chugach National Forest. May not be, but we're in that vicinity in any case. So I might be off where exactly we're at, but there's so much federal land through here that it's sort of hard to keep track of all the different Chugach National Wildlife Refuge and Chugach National Forest, the Kenai National Wildlife Refuge, Kenai Fjords National Park, the Resurrection Bay Maritime, whatever. I don't even know what it's called anymore. I have to go look that one up. But the point is, a ton of federal land and federal stuff through here, and it really chafes a lot of people. But it is what it is. So we're looking down at Canyon Creek. That looks absolutely stunning. Look at that. You can see the rapids. You can see the rapids, dude. I love it. I freaking love it. So come down, see if we can see the old bridge. Yeah, not from here. You can see the rest area through here, and we're kind of crossing over Canyon Creek as it comes into 6 Mile Creek and then becomes 6 Mile Creek throughout. Now through here, there's a newer bridge and there's an older bridge. The older bridge is scary as heck, and I remember driving over it as a kid, and it doesn't look like we're going to get a good view of it here. But off to the right here, that's 6 Mile Creek that it comes down, and that it looks exactly like it ought to. I mean, that is... I can't even say enough about that, how much that looks right. This is correct. This is 100% correct. That little piece that comes off there, yes, correct. All that stuff is good. That's how it looks, man. Look at that, the rapids there. I love it. I absolutely love it. Let's try not to crash into a mountain, waxing poetic about how good this looks. So now we're getting into territory that I'm just not nearly as familiar with. I think it looks fantastic. Oh, man, look, there's the highway there, moving up with millions of cars that just it doesn't work that way. But on this side, there's 2 lanes going south here, up the hill, and then one going down. And again, that's the passing lane there. So we're heading towards sunrise right now. And once upon a time, for a very brief period when mining in this area was in its heyday, I want to say it was in the late 1800s, Sunrise was the most populous place in the state, around 800 residents. I tend to think that's not right. I mean, not the most populous place. I just feel like we're just not representing other places in the state quite as well. Because I feel like the YK Delta, that is to say the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, there's some big places out there that almost certainly had more. But maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, I'm not a historian. I just feel like, 800 just doesn't seem big enough to be the biggest place in the state. But it was very short-lived. We're talking about for a few summers, and then in the early 1900s, the whole place basically burnt down. And today, there's all of 7 households living in that community. And I'm not sure about the demographics, but I'm pretty sure it's predominantly non-Alaska Native. That's probably folks that have their roots in that gold rush over 100 years ago. I don't know what this line is. I suspect this is the power line. Again, I've not driven down here to see what's here, but this feels like power line to me. Ooh, is that the highway? Man, that looks super great. Right next to 6 Mile Creek there. That's fantastic. Now again, I'm going to complain about this, but these artifacts here just they make me cranky because it's the only thing that really interrupts the game. Even if it was just straight down, that would be way better. You can kind of see over to the other pass there. But I do have to say, artifacts aside, that the creek and the road here look pretty darn good compared to some of the other spots I've flown over so far that have creeks and roads. And there's going to be some later videos where we have creeks that are even in worse shape, as far as what they look like. So, and again, I sort of struggling with this aircraft a little bit. I'm not that comfortable with it. I haven't done that much with this one. Dude, look at those rapids. That is unbelievable. And that riverbank and the slough, that is just, oh man, I can't even. Okay, let's get back to it here. Let's try to focus. So we're headed into Turnagain Arm right now, and in the first video I posted, and if you haven't seen that, go back and check that out. Give some background, what I'm trying to accomplish here, and that sort of thing. And it starts us off in Anchorage, and it's in a much larger aircraft. But Turnagain Arm was named by Captain Cook in the late 1700s because they coming up here looking for the Northwest Passage, and they kept having to turn around again and again because the tides are really severe and they move in and out really quick. And on a really windy day, you'll have these winds coming down from the east into the west that will prevent the tide from coming in evenly, and so you'll have this 2-foot wave of water pushing against the wind, and it's just that's called a bore tide. And I've seen a few videos. I've never seen it in real life, but even when it's not like that, when the tide comes in, it rushes like a river, like a really raging river. It just rolls in really fast. These are, according to local legend, the second most severe tides in the world. I've heard some information that refutes that, and it puts it more like 3 or 4, but still, they're very severe. I mean, they move in quick, they go out quick. The sand and the mud here, it's not a laughing matter. It's super duper dangerous. You don't really want to be hanging out on the beach here. And it does come up some 20 or 30 feet on a normal tide day, which I don't know if that's normal for other parts of the world, but certainly normal here. And as we fly in, and again, whenever I fly over Cook Inlet, I'm going to point this out, particularly the upper Cook Inlet. This is all tidal flats through here. So this is full of water. This is an extreme high tide scenario. Normally, this would be almost all low, gray, silty mess. So, and right now we're pointing over towards, I believe this is Bird Creek area, I think, and then Indians to our left. That's what we call it in this area. And then off to our right, just past this ridge we can't quite see over, that's Bird Point. And we're going to talk about that and go over that later. I'm going to fly back up Turnagain Arm in the next video. We're going to head towards Girdwood and some of the sites up there. Man, I love this. I kind of want to stop and montage this, but it's so darn good I don't really want to stop. I mean, look at this. I can't say enough about how good that looks here, and it makes me happy because so much of the rest of it in this region just it has some poor stuff going on there. And so this looks legitimate for what I understand about that 6 Mile Creek. And I'm gonna double check that it's in fact 6 Mile Creek, because now I'm feeling like I got it all wrong. So again, I don't know if I said this before, but I'm actually looking at another map here that's produced by the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. It's the sort of anadromous waters catalog, and this has got everything labeled, and it's got a really good map on it that I can follow. It's about as good as getting a gazetteer for Alaska, only easier to use. So yeah, that's 6 Mile Creek. So now the road here, the Hope Highway, as they call it, turns to our west and heads towards Hope. You can't really see this road from the other side. Now, the other side you can't really see from this side either is the Seward Highway that moves north towards Anchorage or south towards Seward. And this crazy thing here, I don't know what's going on with that. I think that's a mix of highway and power lines. I'm not 100% sure. Again, I would expect this all to be sort of long mud flats. Again, I've not been on this side, but the other side absolutely is. And so I have no reason to believe that we didn't see that. Most of the time, this Turnagain Arm is inside of these channels more like a river than it is a big full bay like what we're looking at right now. That said, there's a lot of authenticity going on here. I mean, you know, once it renders in, like this mountain, that looks great. You know, that's just kind of how it looks. Now, same over here. Again, these are you know, largely Sitka spruce in this area, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of cabins in this area, a lot of recreation, I think. Good Lord. That is super true to life. I'm having a hard time flying this thing. I just want to watch the landscape go by. Now, Hope is the same. You know, we're going to come into Hope here in a second. If we don't crash first. And Hope is got about 200 permanent residents. It was established in the late 1800s, again, associated with mining. A lot of the town was destroyed in the 1964 earthquake. Big chunks of this part of the state were really wrecked during that 1964 earthquake, one of the biggest earthquakes on record. Again, in Hope, there's a lot of recreation. I know of people who have cabins out there, and I think that that's most of what's going on here. A lot of bears out there. Actually, just this summer, gentleman was mauled by a bear just trying to clean out a hiking trail behind his house up the mountain, and that's a really tragic kind of story you hear about a little bit too often, I feel like, in this area. But you know, when you're trying to share the space with wild critters, sometimes there's some interactions that are just not super positive, and that happened to be the case. I understand Fish and Game went out, took care of the problem bear. We don't like to see bears getting too aggressive with humans. You know, we don't necessarily want to get rid of the bears, but at the same time, bears that have gotten to the point where they're just no longer scared of humans, that's a recipe for disaster. So looking up at these mountains, this looks good. All this textures up here just look freaking great to me. I wish I knew more about this area to speak to whether or not this looks legit, but honestly, big parts of the state look like this, and that is, you know, I love it. That is super great. Truck just flying through the air. They're flying trucks now. There's some flying trucks. Looks like he got back on the ground there at some point, maybe. So again, we're looking over toward, I think that's the Bird Creek area, and that's Indian, and the highway just you can kind of see it there right up against the water. The Seward Highway is a dangerous highway, and it's not dangerous necessarily because it's dangerous. I mean, it is, but it's because it's gorgeous. And I think people are driving up this highway way too fast when they shouldn't be, and not focusing on the highway. It's twisty and it's turny and it's already a hard drive, but it's also absolutely beautiful. It's super hard to keep your eyes on the road when this is the scenery. I mean, this has got to be one of the most scenic places in the whole universe. And sometimes you can see Mount Redoubt and you can see Mount Spur and all these mountains on the other side of the Cook Inlet here. They really absolutely look like this on a beautiful sunny day. You see the white of the mountains, and yeah, it's hard to keep your eyes on the road. So in Anchorage, it's just kind of around there. Sort of can't see them from here. Once we take off in the next video, we'll see the bluffs, and I'll point those out. But again, the highway just kind of follows along and tracks the foot of the mountains here. And Indian too, this region is also known for sort of mining and that kind of thing. I don't know that it's really active right now. I'd have to look it up, but certainly historically there's some mining up in here. It's super common in Alaska, of course, for the mining, but in this region there's a lot of hot spots for mining. Yeah, again, I'm looking down at this and thinking these should all be mud flats down here, which is kind of a disappointment that it's not, just because I want to point it out, because it just looks, even though it's gray and sort of drab, it's lovely in its own way, you know. One of these days I need to drive out here, even if it's just for a day. This isn't that far from Anchorage, honestly. We're only 45 minutes north of Anchorage as it is. So it's sort of silly that I should not just do this as a day drive one day. So now we're coming around here to Hope, Alaska, and let's see if I can dig up the name of this bay that we're moving into, if there's a name for it. I'm not seeing anything. I can say that's for sure this is Sniper's Point. We're going past here. That's the name I just found right now. We're gonna try not to drop too quick here. I'm kind of coming in low, I know, but I also am trying to do the tourist thing, so here we are. So here's Hope. And this here, coming out of here is Resurrection Creek, which is interesting because if you go to the other side where we're headed next, or sort of the direction we're aiming is Seward, and that's got Resurrection River, Resurrection Bay. So I don't know the genesis of these names, but it strikes me that they're perhaps connected somehow. And I don't know what the kinds of trees and stuff in here are. I guess looking at the patches here, my guess is that we've got, our birch spruce kind of situation in here with cottonwoods, and then these darker patches would be Sitka spruce and perhaps some hemlock. So I can see the runway now, and I'm just going to try to line up a little bit. And if we take this valley up, this actually takes us out to the other side of Kenai Lake. Otherwise, I would have just taken us straight in. But I also kind of wanted to follow the Seward Highway too. I thought that was going to be kind of interesting. I just feel like this is super lovely. And again, I didn't pause to just montage this or speed it along, but I just wanted to share every last second of this trip, because I've done it exactly once in the FlightSim, and I loved it when I did it, and I sort of wanted to share that with everybody, and I do hope you enjoyed it. This is really close to my home, and I just want everybody to experience it the way I do. Really, I find it lovely and beautiful. And granted, we're flying on a super gorgeous day, which is, I want to say it's not typical, but it's actually not that rare. In the summertime, in fall time, sometimes you get these nice crisp days. Today was like that actually. It's early September right now, and a little bit of termination dust on the mountains. Termination dust, if you're not familiar with that term, is we start getting a little bit of snow on the tops of the mountains. That's terminates our summer. That's what we call it. We usually start feeling the nip of the winter time. So again, that's Resurrection Creek off to our right-hand side. We're just coming into the runway here, and I've only come in here once, and it's kind of rendered weird, so it's on a funny angle, and I kind of had a hard time getting in there. So I'm gonna do the thing you don't really need to do in this particular cub. I've got my flaps way down, which is totally unnecessary. You can land these little aircraft on a sandbar. Sometimes you actually see these things with great big tires on them, and I think that's for guys who are trying to do sort of remote stuff, or gals, I suppose, that are trying to do remote stuff like on sandbanks and that kind of stuff. See those sometimes at Merrill Field, which is the small plane general aircraft airport in Anchorage there. All right, we're getting pretty close. I'm loving how this looks. These trees aren't quite right, but I'm not sure if I really care that much. There we go. So again, the drag with these tail draggers is that you can't see once you start really pulling up your nose here. So, oof, that was way hard. Well, again, not a pilot. It's what it is. So that's it for the flight today. We're in Hope, Alaska. We just came from Quartz Creek off of the Kenai Lake near Cooper Landing. And if you like the video, hit the like button. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. And if you want to know right when the next one comes out, hit that notify button. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.